It's just a huge, huge honor for me today to be bringing back Dr. Brady Farran. He was on episode 315, and I hardly ever bring anyone back because if I did, it'd take me 3 years to bring the last 1,000 people back. But you just busted a big move, and I wanted to get you back on the show. Dr. Frank is an international clinical and business lecturer, inventor, and founder of multiple companies in the dental space. He has owned multiple private dentist-owned groups, DDSOs, since 2001 when he graduated from Marquette Dental School, which is also the school that Rick Kirshner went to, right?
That's right.
And he donated, what, $1 million to Marquette?
I think it was. Not too long ago, but yes.
I can't believe he donated Marquette Dental School $1 million and didn't give me one. I mean, shouldn't he just split that between me and you, give us each $500,000?
Maybe you should elbow him. I know you're buddies, so.
And now you're the founding member of the DDSO Alliance. So talk about your new move. You're always such an entrepreneur. You're so exciting. What is your new DDSO Alliance? And the website is DDSOBlueprint.com. The DDS, that's you, and O means owned. So DDS owned blueprint for basically starting your own DSO, correct? Am I right?
No, you're absolutely right. I think, the buzzword has been DSOs, right, for a while. DSO this, DSO that. The DSOs are taking over. You got to be more like a DSO. And so a DDSO is simply a dentist-owned DSO. So taking all the good things that the DSOs have done, so I am not anti-DSO. They've done great. They've crushed it. What a DDSO does is brings all the goodies, all the business guts that the DSOs have and brings it over to their group, right? Taking the best strategies that the DSOs have and really using those for your dentist-owned group. So whether, a dentist-owned group I classify as either multiple doctors in one location or multiple locations. And so all of those I consider DDSOs. And so, yes, this organization is all about kind of really taking the best stuff from the DSOs, bringing it over into private dental practices, and taking advantage of the new tax laws that are there, and taking advantages of really allowing dentists to own. So I really, really think that over time, some dentists want to be an associate. That's great. But some dentists want to be owners. And I think there's a place for both associates and owners in these groups, not just associates. So I really talk about co-ownership models and where you can have thriving associates, thriving co-owners. So that's what the DDSO Alliance is. A bunch of groups around the U.S. getting together to share their secrets, to share the secrets of the top 1%.
When I got out of school 30 years ago, what percent of dental offices had more than one dentist in it? And what do you think it is today? And what do you think it'll be in 10, 20 years?
So right now, when I would say we have 500% more offices with more than one doctor than when you got out of school. I don't know the exact statistic, but I do quote it actually in this book I wrote recently, and it goes over some of those numbers with some ADA stats. But I will say that I think the propensity to multiple doctors has been due to a variety of factors, but certainly because of the reduction in overhead, which allows dentists, private dentists, to actually compete with some of these more well-funded groups. So the solo doc overhead right now per the ADA is 69% to 70%, right? And every doctor that goes into practice, it goes incrementally down. A 2-doctor practice has less overhead than a 1-doctor practice. A 3-doctor practice has less overhead than that. A guy named Dr. Joe in Florida has 2 20-operatory practices in Florida. And he said, Brady, I mapped it out. And this guy's a magician with numbers. I mapped it out. As I've built these 20 operatory locations, every doctor that gets added, the overhead goes down by a percentage, creating a higher EBITDA. And of course, as you know, all the DSOs revolve around the EBITDA number. The higher the EBITDA, the more the group is worth, and they can sell for 10, 12, or 14x. So that's why right now a lot of the DSOs are really focused on adding multiple doctors per location because of that percentage overhead.
And what do you think is that today in 2018? What do you think? What percent of the market do you think is DSOs?
Oh goodness, I would have to. I won't quote the number because I'd probably be attacked if I was off. But it's a lot. I mean, it's increasing every year, and so my goal is to really get the information that the DSOs are using, because I used to sit around the table with a lot of the heads of the DSOs, and really apply those strategies to the guy who has 2 locations, to the guy who has 4 locations or 10 locations, so that he can really act like and manage his practice like a practice that has 50 or 100 locations.
You quote Tony Robbins. If you want to achieve success, all you need to do is find a way to model those who have already succeeded, which is so true. And I tell these young dentists, some of them have bad attitudes because they're working in this large DSO and they want their own place. And then when they get their own place, they're going to realize that 99% of dentists, their biggest problem is running their business, not doing a filling or a crown or a root canal. And I'll say, dude, you worked at Heartland for 2 years, and Rick Workman and Pat Bauer are managing 800 office. Tell me everything you learned from a dentist named Rick Workman about how to manage 800 office, because now you're going to go struggle with your own damn office. So I tell these kids, I mean, while you're working in there, if you really want to have your own practice, well, at least learn from the people who can run 800 practice. I mean, Steve Thorne can run 500 Pacific Dentals, and you're just sitting there pouting because you want your own place. I mean, gosh, there's so much that they could learn from that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And one of the resources that I put together recently, and it took a long time to put together, but basically, over time, I've been teaching on the multi-doctor, multi-location concept for about 15 years. And so I've gotten to meet a lot of the owners of a lot of the private groups in the U.S. Now, the problem is a lot of the folks listening today that don't own a practice yet, they're dental students, or they're just out of school, or they're an associate for a DSO, they can't get in contact with these guys. So I created something called DDSO Direct, and this is a no middleman resource, DDSOdirect.com, a no middleman resource for young dentists to get in touch with the top 1% private practitioners. Not the DSO owners, but the DDSO owners, those guys that have 2 locations, 5 locations, 10 locations that are crushing it. And you go onto there, you'll see the guy's picture, you click on it, you answer a few questions, and that shoots right to that guy's inbox, that dentist's inbox, so that you can have a mentor if you're someone who's just gotten out of school. So pretty neat, and it's the first kind of resource. And that launch is actually next week, Howard, which means by the time people listen to this podcast, they can probably go online and check it out.
Well, as soon as they're online, email Ryan, and then we'll put it out the next show, because our queue is about a month long. But
okay.
As soon as they're live, well, tell me what your thoughts are of this. My observation is one layer management versus 2. When I go into a town, let's say it's just any Sioux Falls, South Dakota, whatever, and there's a dentist there, and he's on the south side. And he decides to go set up one on the northeast and west. So he wants to go from 1 to 4. Well, that affords a layer of management where you can have someone, a professional, HR, legal, marketing, accounting, payables, receivables, and those offices to me are just crushing it because they get a layer of professional management versus the solo doctor who's got to wear every single hat. And those ones that are wearing every single hat, I see patterns of success where, say, their spouse is massively involved. Like, she's the dentist, and her husband says, well, I used to make 60 grand a year at this company, but if I can build this dental office and at 2, 3, 400 a year, now he's making 3 times as much. But if they don't have a significant other, if they don't have the office manager that can take a lot of those hats off, they're overwhelmed with too many hats. But that first layer, my gosh, that's a competitive advantage. What I don't see is when there's a second layer. So now you got a headquarters who's overseeing groups in 10 different states, and they're taking 14% off the top. I don't see the efficiencies they're giving to justify that 14% on top. That second layer of management to me, and I think that second layer of management is why they're not profitable enough to do an IPO on the NASDAQ, why they just keep venturing from private equity smaller to a larger private equity to it's kind of like a hot potato. They're just running around musical chairs. No one wants to own the potato. Whereas when you go public, the stockholders want to own the potato. But I think that for having a single layer of management at the local level is the sweet spot. Do you agree with that rant or disagree?
You know, our rant is on the same page right here, Howard, is that single layer of management diagrammed out. You said Sioux Falls. Let's say they have 2 locations, 1, 2, 3, right? Then they have a central entity, right? Just a simple LLC that has an administrative services agreement with each of them, right? Now, HR is at this level, bookkeeping is at this level, marketing is at this level, right? 1 layer of management, and you don't have multiple layers, right? So you get that pure overhead savings, and you get that pure, basically, economy of scale. So you're right. Now here's the neat thing with DDSOs. At this location could have a different ownership structure than this one, which could have a different ownership structure than this one. This one might have a couple 50-50 owners in it. He might have added an owner. This one might have 2 young docs because it's more mature practice, and then the founder owns a third. This one right here, he might have just bought for a really killer deal in North Sioux Falls, and he wants to grow that up before he adds equity players to it. But all of them are managed by this. And the neat thing is the more revenue we run through this DDSO entity now, because of the new tax law changes, we get a 20% tax deduction. So not only does it make it a more efficient management structure, but we save 20%. They used to make fun of Mitt Romney for being in a 15% tax bracket. Now us dentists can, when we equity harvest or add partners, be at the lowest tax bracket, long-term capital gains, and get the 20% tax deduction through that. So you're absolutely right, Howard. I agree with that. But the fun part about this is this right here. When you've got friends who have done this, and what happens is these DSOs, they start to form these other vertical organizations. They, your buddy that you were talking about earlier, I won't mention it, but he formed a lab, right? He formed all different components. Right here are the vertical organizations. So the natural evolution of that small group in Sioux Falls is that as they develop that management structure internally, that 1 layer like you talked about, Howard, now they add a lab. They add their own patient financing company. They add a dental savings plan that's branded to their practice. They add a software company. And now when they want to go from Sioux Falls to Fargo, instead of adding another layer of management and doing another region, now they can take all those goodies that they developed in Region 1, and they could do a very simple licensing arrangement or cash flow arrangement without 2 layers. They open up and they clone a new region. And so those are some of the strategies, I think, like you had mentioned, Howard, that are going to pull private practice dentistry into a new realm. And sad to say, Howard, I love DSOs. Aspen, Heartland, they're great. But here's the deal. A lot of those organizations are funded by public money or large institutional money, and that money follows the EBITDA. And when enough dentists become owners and practices over time, not that they have to, because there's many dentists that should be associates, but when that happens and the EBITDA goes down just a little bit in the DSOs, that big money is going to pull out, and then DDSOs are going to be the ones that can go in and buy practices at pennies on the dollar. Just did one last week, a free practice, a free 3-doctor practice. It was basically $50 a record after they pay $200 for an exam, cleaning, and x-rays. So right now we're seeing it where DDSOs are taking over some of the extreme growth rate that the DSOs have had using strategies that have been morphed from the DSO environment to the DDSO environment.
Hey, a question I got the other day with an email from by the way, if you had questions, send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com. And don't forget to subscribe on the YouTube channel so you can see how handsome Brady Frank is. You don't want to be listening to him on iTunes. He's a handsome devil. But I got a really great question. What would be the difference between what you're doing versus a franchise? How come you never used the term franchise? What is the difference between a licensing agreement and a franchise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a franchise rolls up the residual income to the franchisor, right? The franchisor is the big boy, and the franchisee, he pays the money to Papa, which is fine. And so it's that franchisor that adds the value. So in this model, it ends up being a situation where all the dentists that become owners in the group get to, in essence, share in that residual or passive income that occurs through the centralized management company. But instead of it being more of a kind of passive thing, the dentists actually take part in the management and the growth. So some of these millennial dentists, they get the tech stuff. They get social media, right? They get all that stuff, which is imperative to growth. And the founders of the groups, it might be a 60-year-old guy, a 55-year-old guy, 72-year-old guy. Unfortunately, they don't get the tech stuff oftentimes like others do. So by incorporating a multi-owned structure at the DDSO level, not just the founder guy, which it oftentimes is with a franchise model, you're able to get a lot of dentists working on behalf of the group. And I found the group can have a lot higher growth rate when it's not just the franchisor trying to grow it, but you got a lot of dentists who own parts of different practices or are partners in different practices that are helping expand that group.
So hold up your book. You came out with a new book.
Yes. Transition time. It's kind of on one's transition to freedom, basically converting their assets into cash and cash flow. And so, Howard, you and I have chatted in the past. I've been investing in real estate since 2001, bought a bunch of houses outside Phoenix, sold those, most of them, fortunately, at the height of the market, put it into commercial real estate. Now I'm into how Amazon Prime has caused the buying habits of America to change. Isn't that right? People aren't going to the strip malls to buy their jeans anymore. So what I've been doing is buying strip malls that are defunct or have a partial vacancy rate. I don't know if you've seen all these for lease signs. Well, commercial real estate is dirt cheap when it's partially vacant, and I'm converting them to medical dental. So the last building I did was a 9,000 square footer that had used to have Blockbuster in it, right? Did Blockbuster go away with this tech move? Absolutely. Got replaced by Netflix. So I'm going in, buying a strip center for less than $30 a square foot, converting it to medical dental. This one I put a dental office in, a chiropractic office, and a blood lab. It happened to be next to the hospital, next to an Applebee's, a Burger King. And I'll tell you what, by taking a retail building that is partially vacant, converting it to medical dental, usually can increase the building value by 200%, 300%, 400%. So this book goes over all these different verticals to build around your dental practice or group. So it goes over the commercial real estate vertical. It goes over building your own lab, the 3 ways to build your own lab, some ways to build your own dental savings plan in your practice and brand it to your practice. So a bunch of those, but it also goes over the dentist-owned model and the hybrid. So the hybrid model is where you might have 3 associates and 2 owners. So over time, a lot of dentists feel like they want to harvest equity from their practice, not be just sitting on a bunch of associates, which is fine, but harvest equity. So this book goes over how to break up your practice into a bunch of parts, allow dentists to be owners in that, and those dentists may or may not have an equity piece on the management company in the middle. They might just own a third of this location. Or a larger practice, I work with a lot of like 20-op practices, larger ones. You might break the practice into 5 20% chunks. You sell 4 20% chunks, and you hold on to the managing piece and still have control of that practice. So that's what the book is all about, all the creative ownership and expansion strategies for DDSOs. It's called Transition Time, which is basically your transition to freedom, converting your working income into more passive residual cash flow on a monthly basis.
Where can they buy it?
If you want to, so anyone that's watching the podcast right now that went through the pain and agony of listening to me and you, Howard, even though I think they could listen to you all day, this is where they can get it. It's just text free book to 31996. Just text the word, all one word, free book, 31996. All you have to pay is the shipping and handling, which is less than $10. We'll then get you a book. and some other resources if you like. Read the book, and if you want to come to one of the meetings, we got a bunch of meetings, and hopefully folks are listening to this podcast before June 22nd, 23rd. If you are, Howard is speaking at our DDSO Alliance meeting right in your backyard, Howard. So it's great to have you. We just talked about that before the podcast, so that'll be killer.
I can't wait. So they text free book to 31996. And then what, you text them back?
What it is just like everything today, it's automated. So it says, glad you're looking for the book. Email back the address that you want it sent to. And we will actually send that book to you. So it just goes through it, gets your name, your address, and boom, goes to our fulfillment people, and we get you this book.
So, you've studied so many DSOs. I mean, how many DSOs have you worked with in your life?
I would say probably about 260, 2 location to 150 location groups.
260, 2 location to how many location?
To 150 location groups.
Wow, you're. That's why I'm so glad to get you on the show, because what have you learned from that? That somebody listening to you right now that just owns his own practice in Parsons, Kansas, and what are the DSOs doing? What are the takeaways from the DSO in HR and marketing and legal and all that stuff that they can apply to their own solo practice?
Yeah, so here's the things I've learned in working with the DSOs over time. So working with the ones that are, owned by non-dentist equity, right? These institutional investors and whatnot. What I found is they buy, here's an important point, they buy retail. They buy their practices retail, meaning they're going to pay for a $4 million practice about $8 million for that practice, right? DDSOs, dentist-owned groups, they get smart. Their practices, like in Sioux Falls, I was talking about, they're going to buy their practices wholesale. So the first 5 practices that I bought, the first one I bought for $8,000, bought one for $20,000, bought one for $103,000, bought one for $165,000. I mean, I am buying practices. Last week was free, right? I'm buying practices dirt cheap. The dentist, the DDSO, he seeks to buy here, and so find value and create value. That's where the equity increase comes from, finding value and creating value. And then that dentist, with what he reaps from equity sales and so on and so forth, he forms his own private equity company. So why get money from private equity company, which is a trend today, when you can buy wholesale, allow owners to increase with you, and then go ahead. I'm not against DSOs. Sell retail to them. Make the big return on. So what I've learned is that private groups are nimble, and they're buying really inexpensively, and they're buying practices that are on the regression phase. So they're not buying a practice in its peak. They're buying a practice where that retirement age doc has gone from 4 days a week to 2 days a week. And he wants to get out of that deal. And the dentist knows, well, if we go in there, we could go like this. I got Billy and Jimmy who just graduated. I'll mentor them. So these guys are doing mentorship programs, teaching them the ropes, allowing them to grow. And now the dentists are doing really well on the equity side. So that's one of the big differences that I've found is in working with groups, dentist-owned groups, is they're buying what I call ESPs, entrepreneurial satellite practices, and finding them. So I bought a seminar company in 2006 called Phasing Out Seminars, and I did 36 seminars to retirement age dentists, 3 years in a row, 36 seminars, did 485 transitions, and I'm starting that company again, Howard, in 3 months, just to find deals for all these DDSOs around the nation I work with. So I'm going to do a seminar, and then boom, we've got all the buyers there, because I right now have about 50 groups in the DDSO Alliance, and then they go in and gobble up and take over these practices and do what we want to do in dentistry, increase them. And so anyway, that's the biggest difference between DSOs and DDSOs. As far as DSOs, what do they do right? I really think they manage capital correctly. Right now we have a gentleman named Ryan, who is the chief investment officer for a group of families in the U.S. Every family has greater than about a $10 million net worth. And he is funding our DDSOs right now, about a total of $82 million he has access to. And so these DDSOs are still not using their own money. They're using other money, not from the private equity companies, but using private money to acquire the practices, grow the practices, and then allow equity ownership. So I think they manage capital better than us. And so I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to help dentists form their own private equity company, help dentists form their own real estate portfolios, have dentists form their own companies in dentistry. And as many of you know, I've done that in physical product companies in dentistry and educational companies. So really it's about having entrepreneurship go back to dentistry. Howard, when you got out and you started your own practice or bought your own practice, we were entrepreneurs decades ago. We had to be entrepreneurs to start our practice. It's gone the other way. They're saying take the 401k package, take your loan repayment package, let the business go to us. We have to become entrepreneurs again in dentistry or we're going to lose it to institutional money.
Yeah, and I want the dentist to own the dental offices at some level. I mean, once every MD, physician, and dentist works for a publicly traded company, where are my grandchildren going to go when they need a doctor?
Yes, for sure.
I mean, I want my little Megan to go to a dental office and have her treated like I would want her to be treated.
Yeah.
And it just, I live in Arizona, one of the few states where you don't have to be a dentist to own a dental office.
Yep.
And I think that's a dangerous trend.
Yep. I think so too. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but really what I would like to do is help with other leaders like yourself leading dentistry back to not just its clinical roots, but its business roots, and get dentists back understanding all the principles that the DSOs already understand, but even take it to a better level, finding and adding value through practice ownership and doing it with multiple locations. Just like you said, Howard, hey, one level of management can do incredible things, and that private dentist can do great things, even if it's in Sioux Falls. One leg up that us dentists have is DSOs don't go into rural markets, really. A dentist-owned practice, they can flourish in a rural market. And so that's one advantage. If you're rural right now, or if you're thinking of going rural, if you don't own a practice yet, if you go rural, you're eliminating a lot of competition. The DSOs have to stay in bigger markets to employ associates. So if you're thinking, oh, I can't go big in a rural area, you know, I should stay away from the rural areas, that's hogwash. Go to a rural area where the DSOs can't create this just system of replacing associates, and you can do really well in rural nowadays.
You know, every time a dentist opens up and they're 2 hours away from an airport that Southwest Airlines will take off of, 2 hours away from one of those regional airports, they're crushing it. I mean, they're just crushing it. And once you can see the airplanes taking off from the airport out your dental window, it's just massively competitive. I mean, it's just one of the biggest variables. Why do you think kids won't go rural?
Well, I think kids don't go rural like I used to think. I used to think the money's in the big cities. There's a lot of marketing dollars to be spent there. And it's like, well, no. That's why one of the chapters in here, Module 11, there's 14 of modules. They're coming online through a mastership class I'm putting on, but investing in the rural practice right here. I didn't realize it till probably 10 years out of school that it's these rural guys that can crush it quickly, and then they can go ahead and build other locations in other rural communities. And just like you said, Howard, have that one level of management. So this might be a rural community 30 miles away, 50 miles away, 10 miles away with centralized management. Those are the guys that are crushing it right now. One guy in South Dakota is doing that and just going nuts because you go into a community and your advertising budget is nil compared to going into Phoenix or Seattle. And so that's why I actually have a whole module on that. If you're a young guy wanting to do that, I mean, read that module right there. I do go over all these modules in quick form on Dentaltown CE. I am submitting that to Howard Goldstein. So all this whole book, right? If you get it, watch the Dentaltown CE with the book. So if you get this free book, do not go through the book without going to Dentaltown and watching every module on there. I'm walking through the whole book, and that'll help some of these concepts come to life.
Ryan, can you push that out on social media about that text free book? Should we? Should you take a picture of me and him on doing the podcast?
Yeah, that's what and make sure, Ryan, you say check out Dentaltown CE because it walks through the book and the modules too.
Right on. You know, and another thing about that rural, I mean, I think all these young millennials, they're afraid that, you know, there's nothing to do in the rural. But you're raising 3 boys right now. I raised 4 boys. I mean, my gosh, in the rural, they can go out and shoot a 410 and a 12 gauge and ride a mini bike and a motorcycle, and you don't worry where they're at. They can walk down dirt roads. I mean, it's just everybody in the rural just doesn't mind the fact that it's an hour drive into town. Big deal. It's an hour. You can listen to a podcast. You can listen to music. You can have the whole family in the F-250 truck. I mean, it's just, it's no big deal. And I'm in ground zero for driverless cars. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, where Google is rolling out their driverless cars. It's not even going to be 5 years where that hour into town, you won't even be driving. You'll be sitting in a box, you know, at a desk on your computer or laying on a couch watching a movie. And, you know, you're just going to go get in your car and tell your iPhone where you want to go, and then watch your movie, do your internet, social media, whatever you'd be doing at home, you'll be doing in a box.
I totally agree. And for you guys that are listening right now that are in a big city and you're like, man, I'm missing the boat. Remember, a lot of the strategies nowadays that have to do with DDSOs involve maybe your practice is in the heart of Houston, right? And you're like, man, I've noticed that I'm marketing like crazy and getting the results that half the results I used to 5 years ago. So I really strongly encourage you guys that have a practice, want to expand, form a mentorship program. So I've created a framework for a mentorship program where young docs can get in with these docs, and these docs will actually co-fund with the young guy a new location that can be rural, and the two of them do it together. And it's an investment for the co-founder, and the young guy works it full time. So it's really an investment practice. The guy who's been there, done that, has all the experience, is a big financial safety net. So mentorship programs have been huge, Howard, as a secondary growth plan for the DDSOs I work with. So the DDSOs I work with usually have, like 2, 3, 4 practices. But then outside that bubble, they actually create a mentorship program, and they'll invest in practices within a 3-state area of their group. They go 50-50 in on it. The young guy gets the first $150,000, and then they split profits after that. Really simple. The founders, the mentors' proposition is, hey, let's go into it together 50-50. I don't win until you win. You get the first $150,000. We split profits after that. And then usually at about 36 months, the young guy can buy out the mentor dentist for a discount, and boom. That's, I think, how to do it right, getting into private practice the first time. If you're a little unsure of yourself and you want to do it with someone who's a top 1% dude and cut 10 years off your learning curve.
When you're dealing with 260 DSOs that are anywhere from DOSOs.
Yep, DDSO. Think of DDS like dentist. DDSO. Like
DDSO.
Dentist.
It's a DSO with an extra D in the beginning, so it's DDSO.
Yeah, there we go, Ryan. He's got it.
Okay, dentist DSO.
Yep, dentist. So, yep.
So when you're dealing with these 2 locations to 150 locations, what technologies are they using that you're excited about, that you're passionate about?
Yeah, let me go over that. I didn't think we'd have time to go over this, but have you heard of the word funnel? Howard or Ryan? Yes, you've heard. I mean, you've heard it recently, right? Funnel has become a word of the last 2 years, right? So one of the chapters in my book is all about funnels. Funnels. Let me just go over what a funnel is. A funnel is. Let me pull it up right here. Hold on. A funnel is actually like websites 2.0. So funnels are multiple page websites with 2 or 3 softwares with email automation. So in the DDSOs that I help build and grow and work with, I've got what's called a 16 funnel system. So I've actually got 16 funnels. Some of them are for new patient flow. Some of them are for automating processes. We talked about this before the podcast, Howard. We're in the age today where we talked about a gentleman who's going around speaking instead of getting on tech platforms, and he could be getting on tech platforms and multiplying his time, right? One thing he does in his living room could be as effective as him traveling around the country to six different places. So funnels are what do that. A funnel allows us to automate our group. So Heartland Dental, they have a ton of recruiters, like real people that are recruiters. There's actually a recruiting funnel now that will drive leads into the top, have a video of the founding dentist saying, hey, so glad you're here, would love for you to be a part of our group, apply now right below, using technology. And so one of the funnels is actually a recruiting funnel, and that's DDSO Direct. It helps young docs come right to these dentist-owned groups, recruit for them. There's a funnel, if you go to DDSOfunnels.com, DDSOfunnels.com, I've created a resource for folks to use with the Dental Town CE, and they can go on there and learn about every single funnel that there is out there for dentistry. So some of you have heard of Russell Brunson. He's kind of a funnel master dude and has created dozens, actually hundreds of businesses around funnels. And so I really believe we're behind the times with these automated, really they're websites 2.0. Websites 2.0. So I've got 16 funnels that I recommend and that can be cloned to help automate your group. So instead of having a big gaggle of staff at your DDSO level, the funnels replace more than 70% of the staff needed in an expanding DSO. I'm going to say that one more time because it's been so profound for me. Funnels, automated systems, just like you and I talked about, Howard, replace 70% of the management staff that you would normally need as a DDSO or DSO that is expanding. And so once one understands funnels, we are basically replicating. Same thing with driving a car, Howard. They're now driving themselves. Instead of having recruiters on the phone and all that, it's digitized because here's the deal. New dentists are millennials, and what do millennials do a good job at? Using technology. Funnels are the highest form of technology, which is why they're such a powerful part of expanding DDSOs.
What on these DSOs you work with from 2 to 150 locations, what do you think is the best practice management software to run this?
Wow. So I recommend a number of them. They're all cloud-based. I'm just going to give a list so I don't upset different software companies because I speak at different events that have certain softwares. But I will say, not in a given order because I don't want to do that, but I will say Open Dental, fabulous. Denticon, very good. The cloud-based Dentrix, very good, without the high ticket price of buying the Dentrix software. They might not be pleased that I said that, but their cloud-based is very good, and you just pay a monthly subscription fee. The cool thing with cloud-based is, just like you said, Howard, that one level of management, if you're managing 3 practices with one centralized entity that does HR and everything, you've got to have a cloud-based software so that this regional manager can see into each practice. They can conglomerate analytics and data and do that. Now, here's the other cool thing, Howard. A couple companies will white label and will take the practice management component and will meld it in with QuickBooks to create incredible...
Who will do that?
Dental Intel and Sika Practice Optimizer. Dental Intel, what they'll do is they'll pull off of your dental practice management software and they'll pull out of QuickBooks. And so you get reports like you've never had in any practice management. And what the importance of that is for the owners is it'll show the overhead ratios as it relates to the analytics. So the dollar spent per new patient, which you normally don't get because it doesn't flow with QuickBooks. You'll say how many new patients or production per new patient, but the number that counts is the dollar amount spent to acquire a new patient. And that's what.
But you're in Oregon. You're in Medford, Oregon right now, right?
Yes, sir.
And if you travel straight up Interstate 5 from the southern border, you're almost at California, right?
That's correct. Yep.
And you drive straight up to Salem.
Yes.
That's where Open Dental is.
That's correct.
Have you gone up there and talked to Nathan Sparks and his brother, who's the dentist, Jordan Sparks?
You know, I haven't, but I should because I recommend them all the time.
Well, so do I. I mean, I was on SoftDent, which when I got out of school 30 years ago, it was owned by Kodak. It was the bomb, and that was before there even was a Dentrix. Dentrix didn't come out until Windows 95 came out. But anyway, he is the most. Well, the owner's a dentist, Jordan Sparks. He is the most open-minded owner, available, accessible. I flew up to Provo several times to talk to Dentrix, and it was like talking to a wall. I flew to Effingham to talk to EagleSoft, and these people who've never been in a dental office except as a patient were telling me, well, I don't know, I don't understand. I begged Stan Bergman, who's the CEO of Henry Schein, to please. But anyway, no one will listen. Nathan Sparks of Open Dental says, "Oh, I hear you. That's obvious. That makes sense." And his software is open, so you can actually program the links to that. But I think you and I should go sit down with Nathan. You and I should go up there, and we should meet. And I wonder if is Salem, would that have nonstop flights to Phoenix?
It's a 38-minute Uber ride from PDX to Salem.
What's PDX?
The Portland airport.
Okay, so I fly into Portland.
And you get
Where's Portland?
It's 38-minute Uber ride from the airport.
Is Salem south of Portland?
It is. Yep. It's south. It's the capital. It's south. And it's 30.
Okay, there I see. Okay, I see. Yeah, I want to do that. You tell me the time and day. I will fly from Phoenix because. I shouldn't repeat myself, but when I was 10 years old, my dad had Sonic drive-ins, and the cash register was owned by, remember NCR, National Cash Register?
Yes.
And he had 100 times more data to run his business when I was 10 years old than any dentist does today. And these dentists always think they're bad businessmen, and I tell them, you're not a bad businessman. You got A's in chemistry and physics and algebra. You don't have a franchisee. You don't have a franchisor. Your franchisor is a nonprofit American Dental Association. When your mothership is a nonprofit, your host. I tell kids when they sit there and they say, should I go to dental school? I'm going to graduate $400,000 in student loans. And I'm like, dude, the average Chick-fil-A is doing $4 million a year. If you bought a Chick-fil-A franchise, you would be pretty much guaranteed to do $4 million. I tell them I would, if you're just looking for a return on investment. And by the way, that's something that you and I saw flip in our lifetime. McDonald's was the queen bee, and Burger King was number 2, and Wendy's was number 3. And now the founder of Wendy's died, so now the daughter took it over and listened to everybody that her old man didn't do. Now she passed Burger King, but while she was passing Burger King, Chick-fil-A almost doubled McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's are doing about $2 million a store. Chick-fil-A's doing $4 million a year, and they're not even open on Sunday because their management team thinks all their franchisees need to take Sunday off, have a family day, go to church, whatever. But those Chick-fil-A franchisors, their practice management software. And now those companies are adding machine learning, artificial intelligence, so they'll be able to tell you, hey, Brady, it's Wednesday night at 9. We close at 12. Every Wednesday from 9 to 12, we only do $300. We want an 18% crew labor. You got 6 people still clocked in. Let's send home Amy and Sam, and that should be fine. That way, we'll run an 18% crew labor, 31% food cost. I mean, it's just going places, and the only The only person who's listening and hires 2 new programmers every month is Open Dental. So I switched. I absolutely switched.
You know what I'd like to do, Howard? I think it would resonate with the groups I work with and everybody, every dentist in the nation, your single level of management. What I'd like to do on the 23rd when you speak there in Scottsdale, let's do it on Facebook Live, too. I got a great videographer there. I want to put your thing on Facebook, and I'll get Open Dental engaged in it, because I'll tell you what, Open Dental kind of dovetails with your philosophy of
Let's
that
get
one
Nathan and Jordan to come to it.
Let's do it. Yeah, and we'll run it Facebook. Hey, what do you think, Ryan? Can we run it Facebook Live? I'll get my Facebook folks.
You know, whenever I go on Facebook Live, their porn blocker shuts it down. They think when they see me, they just assume it's a porno, and that's how hot I am. But yeah, let's get Nathan and Jordan to come down there and meet all these DSO people, and let's they're in you're in Medford. I'm sure there's a Oregon Dental Mafia. Aren't you part of the Oregon Dental Mafia?
I am part of the Oregon Dental Line.
Yeah, I tell dentists all the time, they're so frustrated, and it leads to stress, it leads to marriage problems, drinking, all these things like that. And I always try to tell them, dude, it's not you. You have no idea how much easier your life would have been if you would have bought a Dairy Queen, which is owned by Warren Buffett. And if you would have owned a Dairy Queen, you could have a high school education, and your practice management software would carry you through the day.
Unbelievable.
I've been trying to get dentistry to that state my entire career. I've been trying for 30 years in dentistry to get dentistry today where my old man was on a cash register when I was 10 in 1972, and NCR was swallowed up by IBM because it was that good. I mean, I remember when IBM bought and swallowed national cash registers. So when you do that, what other technology? A lot of people wonder, like these DSOs, like your big ones. They got 150 locations. Do they think technology is sexy to attracting consumers? I mean, do they all have CAD cams, Cerax, lasers, and scanning impression material, or is that not statistically lined up with success or failure?
It's interesting. Most of them do have some form of technology. Most of them have a CBCT. If they're in the same town, some of them used to share a CBCT, but now CBCTs are getting down to $70,000 for a full view, and just some really incredible deals out there. If anyone wants it, just email me, and I went to Germany twice, met with the top CBCT owners, and man, I'll tell you what, the company that makes the actual digital plate for most of the CBCTs in the world, they started making CBCTs now and are putting everybody out of business. $70,000 for the whole enchilada. Just email me if you want their contact info.
What can you tell us the company?
Yeah, it's Generate. And just mention Brady.
What's the website? How do you spell it?
Genoray, Genoray, and I'll give you Chris. And if you mention, so I got a group rate with them. If you mention Chris Yoon, to Chris Yoon, Brady's name, they'll knock like $10,000 off of it.
Okay, that's GenerateAmerica.com.
Yes, it is. Yep, GenerateAmerica.
Generate is GENORayAmerica.com.
And then I'll give you the email address. And Chris is the guy. They have a headquarters in California, and all 4 of my locations have the Papaya unit. And I've had all the other units, and this one does twice as much with twice as easy a software for half the cost. It's
the Papaya Plus.
Yep, exactly. Are you seeing it right there?
Yeah, I'm seeing it at GenerateAmerica.com. But by the way, I have to laugh when I go to these conventions. Like you look at all these companies selling X-ray sensors, and the guy at the booth will be telling you, I'll be listening and saying, "Well, Brady, my sensor is twice as clear. It's the one across the booth there, and blah blah blah." Dude, there's only one VCR factory on Earth, and it's in Japan, and it costs several $billions.
Exactly.
And every VCR in the world is made in one building in Japan. And these X-ray sensors are billion dollar companies to build this stuff, and then they repackage them and relabel them in all these companies.
That's these dudes. These guys just got smart, and they said people are marking ours up 400%. They said
right.
We're just going to start doing. That's what nobody's heard of them. It's Chris at GenerateAmerica.com. Chris at GenerateAmerica.com. But just incredible stuff. You're absolutely right. Same concept as the VCR dude.
And if you really think that little company there with 50 employees really built an X-ray sensor, you are out of your flipping mind. I mean, you couldn't even build that sensor with 50 programmers.
Exactly.
I mean, the capital outlay for that is just completely insane. Okay, but CBCT, that is that's a diagnostic thing that's pretty much rapidly moving to standard of care. But what about CAD, CAM, and lasers?
A lot of lab fees have come down so much, down into the $50 to $60 a unit for a nice zirconia unit, that a lot of folks have not been doing the scanners as much. I'm finding in the groups like the Cerex and E4Ds, even though those are great. But I found that trend because the lab fees have gotten low over time. Wholesale Dental Lab is a conglomerate of dental labs that are just like the VCR company, right?
Wholesale Dental Labs.
WholesaleDentalLab.com it's a conglomerate of labs. These are normally the labs that don't sell retail. They just sell wholesale to other labs, and they only sell to the big groups. And I worked with another gentleman to put this group together as a resource for DDSOs, so they could get lab work for about half the price, and try to keep their overhead reasonable for all the owners, the dentist owners of the group. So Wholesale Dental Lab, that's been a big.
Is it WholesaleDentalSupply.com?
It's actually WholesaleDentalLab.com, and it's being unveiled 2 weeks before you lecture in June.
Okay, so the site's not up now.
The site's not up. When you're speaking in June is the inaugural DDSO Alliance meeting, and so a bunch of these things, 16 things at once, are going to be launched about 2 weeks before you speak. So in about a week, it'll be up there at WholesaleDentalLab.com. Nice.
Well, the other big one is supplies. And by the way, when we got out, the one thing dentistry needs more than anything is a chart of accounts. I mean,
yes.
You have all these people, like they'll be sent to the study club and they'll say, well, my overhead's only 50%, but he doesn't factor in the fact that he paid off his land and building. And that's not an accounting that you would have, like my name backwards, Farran backwards, Naraf. Naraf is a real estate company that holds my land and building, my dental office. I have to charge rent because that's you can't say your overhead is lower if you don't pay rent because you paid it off. So what's the cost of capital? I mean, if I took your land and building and sold that and bought stocks or equities or bonds, I mean, it's got capital. Same thing with labor, though. So my labor is 20%. And then the kids next to him like, oh, my God, mine's higher. And it's like, well, this guy's not counting uniforms, FICA matching, health insurance. I mean, so we need a chart of accounts.
Yes.
So that could, but I noticed on the chart of accounts, when I got to school 30 years ago, lab and supplies were totally different. But now I see all the big boys combining lab and supplies because let's say you do get CAD CAM, and so your lab bill goes down, but now on your supplies you're buying all these blocks.
Exactly.
So lab and supplies. But any advice on supply cost?
So a lot of the groups, especially a lot of the groups in the DDSO Alliance, have banded together to work with the big companies and become a buying force, and that's been a big trend. So our group has one with Henry Schein. Patterson does the same thing. So a lot of those companies have developed tiered schedules on supplies. A lot of them, a lot of folks are figuring it out because our global trade. We've now got global trade, so they can go directly to the manufacturers of the stuff that Henry Schein and other companies buy. So dental burrs, the most used instrument for the dentist. Dental burrs, you can get the top ones, even 24-karat gold-plated one, for $1.98 now instead of $8 a burr for those. And so I've seen a lot of that with the groups going direct. That's why I've mentioned DDSO direct a couple times. Now, folks are trying to get around the middleman because they can, just like with the CBCT. With technology, you can find, you can go around the middleman direct. Before, the middleman would knock on your door and be a sales guy, right? Nowadays, we have access to everything online, so people are finding a way to go around the middleman and go directly to these companies.
When I talk to DSOs, when I talk to their CEOs, burrs is the number one insanity in their mind. I mean, they can usually go get the dentist to maybe agree on a bonding agent or maybe a set type of gloves or things like that. But the burrs are out of control. And I feel most sorry for the dental assistants, because if you're in a group practice with 3 different dentists and you all use different burrs, and I've been telling everybody that, some of the greatest advances in a product has been packaging, like milk. Like milk was always in a carton for 2 decades of my life driving a car, when the cup holder was round in the car. So if you went into 7-Eleven, you couldn't buy a carton of milk because it wouldn't fit in the round hole. And it only took them about 20 years to figure that out. And when they changed packaging, exploded. But burrs need to come in a new package where the assistant's freed from that. The dentist is in charge of getting over. The assistant will set up for a filling, crown, or root canal, but the dentist needs to go in central sterilization and dispense a single burr of what he needs. Because some of them are insane. Like, there's a lot of really well-rounded dentists that can do a crown prep or a filling prep with 3 burrs. And then there's other ones that need 9. And then it's a different 9 every single time, because when you're in an operatory, the assistant can never leave. And if you sit there and say, "Oh, well, you go get me that round," then she's got to take off her glove. That's supply. She's got to leave the room. So what does she do? She cheats. She takes her dirty glove, opens the drawer, reaches in with her dirty glove, grabs the burr, and touches 5 other burrs. And that's a really dangerous thing, because when I got out of school, all these little hepatitis A, B, C, all these little outbreaks in dental offices, the CDC kind of had a hunch that they were coming from certain areas, but not enough to go stick your butt in jail and fine you. But now with DNA sequencing, dentists are really losing everything when they sit there and say, "God, man, 9 people showed up and they got this hepatitis, it's all linked. The only thing they had in common was your office, and Henry needs a liver transplant." And so infection control is getting more serious every single day as the CDC detectives are getting so much better. And I think the burrs is the biggest break of the infection control, because the dentist is an artist and he's sitting there with his little palette of paint. "Oh, well, give me the football. No, give me the flame. No, not flame carbide. Give me the flame diamond." Oh, shut up. Shut up. You have to talk to the burr box yourself. And when you walk in that room, you can't leave the room. So if you walk in there and say, "Oh, I didn't want a flame carbide, I want a flame diamond." Well, there's worse things that happen to people. Just go do it with a flame carbide. You know what I mean?
Burrs are. I totally agree with you, 100%.
And yeah, I just think that would be the simplest way to do it. Just a burr box, vending machine, whatever, where, and put the dentist in charge, because it really drives assistants and owners crazy. And that's another thing where dentists can lower their supply costs. When you talk to any sales rep that calls on supply house, they say the problem is the hygienist uses different gloves than the dentist. There's 3 dentists in there. They all use different bonding agents. I mean, come on, you got to agree. And if you say, "Well, I have to use the Ivoclar bonding agent," and the other one says, "Well, I have to use a 3M." Well, they both sell $1 billion a year on it. So flip a coin. You can't sell $1 billion worth of stuff to doctors who have 8 years of college and it be some type of conspiracy farce. It really doesn't work. When you sell $1 billion worth of shit in dentistry, it works. Trust me. You know what I mean? So what else are you passionate about? Anything else I wasn't smart enough to ask? Or
No, I think we're in an interesting time in dentistry where dentists are figuring out how to invest in different asset classes within dentistry. They're getting passionate and figuring out how to buy practices and add value. It's a neat time in dentistry, and writing an article on this stuff in Dental Town coming up here in July issue of Dental Town. So if you can get this book read before the article in Dental Town, we've got a pretty cool thing at the end of the article that you can be involved in. And so once again, I guess I should give that again, this information, just the free book to 31996. If you can make it to Howard and Scottsdale, that would be awesome. We'll put it on Facebook Live. And then if you have trouble with this, if it doesn't work, I've seen technology not work before, it should work. You can just email me at one of my emails, Brady at bradyfrankconsulting.com. You can email me there if you like. But Howard, we're so excited to have your message, which will be well received to our folks who are down in Scottsdale. I think you've got a lifetime of dentistry experience to really talk about and simplify for these guys that own or 2 practices, 5 practices, 10 practices, just a lot of these components that we talked about. And I think it'd be killer to have open dental there as well.
Now, do you have his contact information and all that?
I don't have his contact info, but if you want to shoot us an email, that would be
okay.
Awesome.
I just sent you an email that says, Brady, please call Nathan. I just sent that to you. So you should have the email. And
Awesome.
and if you don't get the email, all you need to do is go get in your car. Do you know where Interstate 5 is?
Yes, I do.
Just get on that interstate and head north. And if you get to Portland, you've gone too far. Is that about right?
Do it. That is about right.
So
Yep,
Interstate 5 will go through Medford,
Yep, right through Salem. Yep.
Through Salem.
Yep, it'll go right up to Salem. I-5 goes right to Salem, and I'll head up there. Tell me if you're going to go up there. We'll hit it up together.
Well, you and I'd fly up there and meet you, or if he's going to come here. I mean, either way, if he's going to come to your seminar next month.
That's right. Yeah, if he comes to Scottsdale, so I'll shoot a little Facebook thing about it out there. I'll get with him, and that'll be great. It's at the Phoenician, and you're going to be Saturday morning, Howard, which will be great. Whatever time you can make it, we'll just rearrange our schedule. Would love to have you, and I'm excited to have you. And hey, we got another guy there, which is his name is Ryan. He's the Chief Investment Officer representing families around America. They're investing into dentists. So instead of you getting institutional money, and instead of going through the banks, there's no red tape. It's 1 week, you get your money and you buy these entrepreneurial satellite practices that are in their regressive stage, increase them through your DDSO framework, fun stuff. And for those of you, like you said, Howard, a lot of guys that are in dental school listening, if you don't own a practice yet and you're looking to do that, that's what our alliance is all about. And so just if you get the free book, you'll be on our text thing. We'll text you all the database of these guys. We want to get you in touch with guys that own groups. We want dentists who own. So if you text and you go to DDSO Direct, you're going to get directly in touch. No middleman, no brokers, directly with groups around the U.S. Where you can take part in their growth and be a part of it. So
now that guy manages money for a bunch of wealthy families.
Yes, yep.
So I want to end on this piece of advice. Remember, you can marry more money in a minute than you can earn in a lifetime. Senator Kerry married the daughter of the Heinz fortune. Senator McCain in my backyard married Cindy McCain, whose father owned the Budweiser distributor for Arizona. So remember, if you don't really want to do all this business stuff and everything Brady's talking about, just marry well. That's all I can say. Just marry well. And that's what you need to tell your boys, because when my boys were your boys' age, you're 13, 11, and 10. When I was that age, I'd say, well, you know what? You don't have to go to school. You don't have to get a good job. All you got to do is marry a girl with a lot of money. And they're like, oh, my God, that was just so vile, the thought that they would be so. I said, you're going to grow up and be some little rich girl's boy toy. And then they would immediately start studying and working. I mean, that was like the last thing. You know, men want to be all manly. Last thing they want to be is some rich little girl's boy toy. But that reverse psychology works so well. I used also with bike helmets. They do say, well, Dad, do I have to wear my bicycle helmet? And I say, no. I said, I always wanted 3 boys, but I had 4 just in case one didn't wear the bike helmet. And, so I always wondered which boy wouldn't wear the bike helmet and bust his head open on the street. But reverse psychology, I think, works well for him. But, hey, Brady, Thanks for always being an entrepreneur. Thanks for always being on the bleeding edge to the leading edge. I mean, you've done so many exciting things. Thanks for coming back on my show for a second time, and I cannot wait to see you. What is it, June 19th?
It's June 22nd and 23rd, the Phoenician in Scottsdale, and you'll be speaking on the 23rd in the morning on Saturday.
And you know why everybody should want to go to the Phoenician?
Huh.
Because your tax dollars paid for it. Remember, that was Charles Keating. So when he went bankrupt, your great tax dollars bailed out the Phoenician. So since you've already paid for the Phoenician through your IRS contributions, you should come and enjoy it.
Hey, there we go.
And on that note, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you have a rocking hot day.
You too, Howard. Thanks again. You're the best.
All right, so are you, buddy.